Hey guys, this is your local Mr. Tree. Please don't let your dog pee on me. Today let's talk about Gachiakuta. Gachiakuta is a really unique new shonen series, written and illustrated by Kei Arana and published by Kodansha. Ever since the first couple chapters, I've been absolutely in love with this series, and today I want to talk about one of my favorite characters, Zanka Nijiki. But before we get to that, let me explain a little bit about the world of Gachiakuta so that all this stuff makes sense to you. You see, Kei Arana is really talented at making the ordinary seem extraordinary in this kind of unique perspective on the world. In Gachiakuta, there are two layers, one which we've only seen in Chapter 1 known as Heaven, which is kind of a utopian society, everything is clean, and nobody does anything out of, well, the ordinary. The issue with this society is that the second that anything breaks, deviates from the norm, or seems like its worth is intrinsically lost, it is thrown to the layer below. And this layer, oh boy. The bottom layer of Gachiakuta's world is completely filled and dominated by trash, so much so that some sort of magical energy in this layer has been turning this trash into monsters called aberrant beasts. The land is toxic, the air isn't breathable in most regions, and people have to learn how to fight against these monsters. Because yes, the worst part is that people do get thrown into this world from the heavens above. But a lot of the society is just descendants from those who did get thrown down below, and they don't even really know much about the upper layer, and why there's things like the trash rain, where things will fall from the sky from the upper layer, dropping things into the bottom layer. I really like Gachiakuta's power system because it really represents this sentiment of pure love in such an oppressive environment. The powers are all based on weapons called jinkies, but what's unique about jinkies is that they can be made out of any inanimate object that a specific individual cares for. Once given enough love, an inanimate object may become a jinki and obtain its own abilities, usually a new form, increased durability, and all kinds of other unique things we're seeing throughout the series. But now let's get into it. Zanka Nijiku, my favorite character from Gachiakuta. I love his personality, I love his fighting style, and I love his design. Let's talk about his design though. His silhouette is honestly pretty tame compared to the other characters from the series. His hair isn't as crazy, and he doesn't have the craziest weapon, but that is actually kind of the point. The most prominent thing that sticks, pun intended, out of his silhouette is his stick. And what makes this interesting is that it's kind of his whole identity, which we can see from his past and how he acts in the future once I tell you a little bit about his backstory. And thanks to Kei Arana's brilliant artwork and character design, we can also make out a little bit more about the sort of rebellious personality that Zanka's hiding under his usual sassy attire. We can see that he's got these striped eyebrows from where he shaved some of them off to be a little bit, spicier, whatever. I respect it. And we also have these crazy earrings as well, which look pretty fabulous actually. This brilliantly and subtly displays the idea that Zanka is trying to stand out and seem extraordinary with what he deems his ordinary existence. Zanka originates from the Nijiku clan, a bloodline that has been running in a law enforcement kind of corporation called the Hell Guard for some time now. It's explained to us that Zanka works extremely hard to be the top of his class in this upcoming ranks of the Hell Guard. The other students all respect him because it looks like he does this without trying. In truth, he's hiding it from everybody else. But very quickly, this illusion is shattered when a new member of the Hell Guard recently joins. Her name is Hio, and she is an extremely talented fighter. Zanka, and the rest of the students alike in the Hell Guard, can only describe her as a genius. Hio and Zanka face off in a sparring match, and Hio absolutely dominates him in front of the rest of the students. The disappointment, embarrassment, and sheer inferiority that Zanka experiences after this event is measurable. He runs off, finds a place to hide, and literally bites his lip until it bleeds. This does seem kind of over the top and pretty intense at first, but that's just kind of how Zanka operates. And honestly, if I dedicated my entire life to being the top student, and someone like Hio came around, I'd be a little shaken up too. Later on in the chapter, Arana gives us a great depiction of how everyone else starts to cope with the presence of a genius in the Hell Guard. Through Zanka's thoughts, Arana depicts perfectly how a bunch of different people cope with different perspectives on the existence of a genius. Some try to copy the real deal, some try to steal from the real deal. Some just hide in their corners and badmouth the real deal. And then there's the perspective that Zanka took, the one that he personally hates the most. Trying to stick out even in the presence of the real deal. You see, there was a class in which all of these characters could choose their weapons to move up in the Hell Guard ranks, and Zanka chose a stick, a wooden staff with a little U shape at the top of it. The issue with this is, while everyone's choosing katanas and morning stars, Zonka's stick was accidentally mixed in with the weapons during the choosing ceremony. People look at him funny and question why he would do such a thing. Zonka originally thinks by choosing the stick that he'll stand out and continue to remain talented with his hard work in order to prove to everybody that you don't need to be a genius to be the best. And I'd like to take this second to note that eventually we learn that Hyo actually chose a katana, completely standard and what every other Hellguard member is using. The interesting irony here is that Hyo is using exactly what everybody else is, therefore the genius isn't standing out. But anyway, facing his embarrassing choice, Zonka finds a hole in the neighboring town and crawls into it. Once again, a little extreme, but whatever, I respect him. We meet another character who I won't get into today that talks with Zonka from the top of the hole. Zonka talks to the man about how he feels, admitting that he thinks he's a loser, and finally accepting that he's an average Joe. He tells himself, and he tells Engine, the character he's talking to, that he's essentially not worth the space that geniuses take up in the world. And this can be a tough sentiment for anyone who's facing the unbeatable wall of someone who is extremely talented. When your hard work does nothing to cross the hard work of already existing individuals, it feels like your time is wasted. Maybe your life is pointless, really. It can be a really sad, almost never-ending chain of envy or self-loathing that I see with a lot of artists these days online, and it saddens me. But in spite of this, Engine has one thing to say back to Zonka. This one simple line was all he needed to get going again. And that line is, why don't you just be an average Joe who is better than a genius? Engine heads off for the day, and it only takes mere seconds for Zonka to climb right back out of that hole and continue his pursuit to conquer the concept of geniuses. But as I'm sure you've already noticed by now, Zonka does have one extraordinary talent, and that's his dedication to remain on top. Even his rash weapon choice is kind of a symbol for this behavior. Zonka sticks with his, stick, and it eventually becomes his jinky, being able to use echolocation when stuck in the ground, becoming very sharp and very durable, and looking really cool at the same time. He essentially stuck with his average existence and turned it into something powerful. Zonka's jinky is pretty impressive, being able to stay on par with a really top-tier villain, Jabber, from the series for quite a while until the poison got the best of him during their encounter. But that's what actually really stumped me on this concept. All of this build-up to show that there's no difference between the ordinary and the extraordinary, and Zonka loses? Really? Just so you guys don't have to worry, he does get saved by Ryo later on in the arc, but let's get back to the point. It took me a good while, but I think I finally thought it through in a way that makes sense. Of course, there will always be differences in the raw talent of a genius and the average existence of a normal human, but that doesn't mean that the average existence doesn't have the right to stand out and make themselves shine. In spite of deeming himself ordinary, Zonka did fight, he did survive, and he's leaving his mark on the world in a more meaningful way than maybe any talented individual in the Gachiakuta world is. With the most ordinary blunt object, Zonka becomes a top-tier threat in the world of Gachiakuta, and I think that's exactly why a stick makes a great character. And I believe we see this sentiment a lot throughout the world of Gachiakuta, seeming as how people turn trash into treasure to make jinkies in the first place. It is okay to deem yourself ordinary, because even without something that may be deemed as a supernatural talent, with ambition and drive, we all have the unique freedom to make ourselves who we want to be and stand out in this world. And this concept shouldn't be taken lightly, because it's one of the very few things we have complete reign over in our lives. But that's about all I have today, folks, so I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did genuinely enjoy it, leave a like, subscribe if you want to see any more of this kind of content. I really love Gachiakuta as a series, and I cannot wait to see it grow, with the anime adaptation coming out in the near future. But with that, this has been your local Mr. Tree, please don't let your dog PM me, and I'll see you later.